So you've been a councillor for a while now. You've done other councillors. You're coming to the end of your tenure, so to speak, with an election next year. May I ask what got you into counselling, or to be a representative for a councillor, or working for the community?
Yeah, well, I think I stood for election first in about 2008. So I've been in politics for quite some time now, and I've always been interested in politics. But I was first elected onto Pencoed Town Council in 2008 as a Conservative representative then in the Velindre ward, but lost out then to Mike Gregory, who was Janice Gregory's husband, the former member of the Assembly for the county council seat. And then, of course, in 2017, I was elected as the representative for Penbrisk. So I've been around the block quite a bit, to be honest.
Yeah. So was this an ambition you always had, to be in public life, to suffer sometimes abuse and sometimes praise, as we all get as councillors?
Hopefully more praise than abuse, to be honest. But yeah, well, I was always interested in politics from quite a young age, to be honest. I watched it closely as a teenager. When Tony Blair actually became Prime Minister, he appointed my father's brother, my uncle, as his Attorney General. And I was obviously fascinated with that. And my uncle Gareth became leader of the House of Lords at some point. So there was always politics in the family, not necessarily my party politics, but yeah, certainly politics in the family, which caused quite a bit of debate. I then studied politics at university when I went to Bath, and then I went on to do a master's in politics at Bath. So it's always been a big interest of mine. I don't really know why I became a Conservative, to be honest with you. It's not out of any specific ideology, as I think I probably sit sort of somewhere in the centre of politics, perhaps more of a Liberal, to be honest with you. But as a young man, I quite liked the challenging nature of opposition. For example, I was a Liverpool supporter, because my father supported Everton. And I probably joined the Conservative Party because my father was a socialist, and we liked the debate at home, the challenge of debate. And to be honest with you, I was also liking the kind of politics that David Cameron was advocating at the time. So that was probably why I joined the Conservatives. But I suppose now I'm a little bit older, I've realised, that opposition is quite an easy place to be sometimes. It's very easy to criticise, isn't it? And I suppose it's quite important to propose innovative alternatives, and that's what I want to try and do now, but as well as providing robust challenge to the existing administration. So it's about being, I suppose, pragmatic and supportive where appropriate. And this is the kind of opposition that I'd like to sort of provide. It's about also working in partnership with your opponents to improve the lives of the people who you represent. So, sometimes I think politics in Bridgend and other places can be a little bit too toxic sometimes. And, that I think is where people in the community are a little bit turned off by it. So there's room, I suppose, to be courteous, challenging, work in partnership, all at the same time, and it's that fine balance which we need to try and find sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. It's not bad having opposition, because then you can find the middle ground that works for the most people in respect. And I completely agree with politics, especially in Bridgend over the last 5 years now, has been very toxic. But I suppose that's what comes with the advent of social media and Twitter and things like that. People will voice their opinions more, but it does have that thing of turning off the ordinary people who just are not really interested in politics, but are interested in what's going on within the county to make life easier.
Yeah, it tends to be sort of a political bubble kind of thing, doesn't it? And that's where it turns off the majority of residents. I suppose from my perspective as the leader of the largest opposition group, call me leader of the opposition, but I suppose that's putting me above my pay grade. It's, I suppose, leader of the largest group. So I try to work with partners across the council, including the administration, to try and find that balanced ground, but also providing that robust challenge which the administration needs. So
Yeah.
that's the kind of opposition which I'd like to create anyway.
Yeah. It's not a case of everybody's fighting against each other. I don't blame one side particularly, because we all know what's going on in Bridgend with the various groups and that.
Yeah.
I'm part of one of those groups. I'm a councillor for Litchard Ward for Coity High Community Council, representing. I am affiliated with Bridgend County Independence, and we've been accused of toxic thing. That's not me. Yes, I have sometimes myself criticised, and you do that, but it's normally in response to overt criticism of somebody else. I'd rather everybody, yes, not agree on everything, because that's when everything gets boring and stale and nothing improves. That you work together and say, well, that's not a great thing, we don't think it should be done this way, let's look at this way and see if we can find a middle ground between the two that works both ways. And that's how...
Yeah, as long as it's constructive, isn't it? You know, otherwise, it kind of descends into sort of personality politics, which is exactly what we don't want, really.
No, it comes into personal attacks. That's the bad part about politics. From the lowest level of community council all the way up to Parliament, to Westminster, to America as you see now, which is, it's more like watching the West Wing than actually proper politics.
Remarkably, I think sometimes, and you know, you probably asked me a little bit about my history as a community or town and community councillor later, but the remarkably, I find that the lower level of local government that you have, the more political it can actually be, amazingly. So you know, that's that is strange in some respects. You'd expect it to be a bit more collegiate, I suppose, at town and community level and for the community, but it often isn't the case.
No, I think with that, when that case comes, it's because you're affecting a smaller area, so you're trying to be more robust in what you do. Whereas you're focusing on one small area, which is only a maximum of 10,000 people, whereas you've got a county which is over 100,000 people that you're going to affect. So the politics gets dispersed between the areas, between the wards, rather than focus deliberately on the ward.